The plastic ultrasound wand felt cold against my skin, slick with gel, but not nearly as cold as the sudden, terrifying silence that had filled the exam room. Dr. Reynolds, a man I had known since I was a child with scraped knees, a man whose laughter usually boomed through the hallways of this clinic, was not laughing now. He wasn't even smiling. He was staring at the manila file in his hands with an intensity that made the hair on the back of my arms stand up. He wasn't looking at the screen where my baby's heartbeat flickered like a tiny, miraculous star in a galaxy of static. He was looking at the paperwork. Specifically, at the name printed on the top line in bold, black letters, Arthur Sterling. I watched his throat work as he swallowed. I watched his hand tremble, just slightly, as he reached out and clicked the monitor off. The rhythmic whoosh-whoosh of the heartbeat, the sound I lived for, the sound that had become the soundtrack of my dreams for the last 4 months, cut out instantly. The room plunged into a heavy, suffocating quiet, broken only by the hum of the air conditioning vent overhead. "Dr. Reynolds?" I asked, my voice sounding small and thin in the sterile room. Is everything okay?" The heartbeat, it stopped. He didn't look at me immediately. He closed the file with a snap that sounded like a gunshot. Then he turned on his stool, his face pale, his eyes filled with a mixture of pity and something darker. Anger maybe. Or fear. "Serafina," he said. And his voice was stripped of its usual warmth. It was professional, distant, and terrifyingly serious. "I need you to get dressed. Right now. We need to talk in my office." Panic gripped my throat like a physical hand. "Is the baby okay? Please just tell me. Is there no heartbeat? Did I lose it?" "The baby is fine," he said quickly, though he still wouldn't meet my eyes. "The pregnancy is progressing normally. Physically, everything is perfect." "Then what?" I demanded, sitting up, ignoring the gel sticking my gown to my stomach. "What is it?" "There is a complication," he said grimly. "A legal one. And a moral one." He stood up, clutching the file to his chest as if it contained a bomb. "Get dressed. Meet me in my office. Lock the door behind you." He walked out, leaving me trembling in a paper gown, my mind racing through every possible disaster. Was my insurance invalid? Was there a genetic defect? Had Arthur forgotten to sign a form? I wiped the gel off my stomach with shaking hands, pulled on my maternity leggings and oversized sweater, and tried to steady my breathing. "The baby is fine," I repeated to myself. "The baby is fine. That's all that matters." But deep down, in the pit of my stomach where my intuition lived, the intuition I had ignored for too long, I knew that whatever was waiting for me in that office was going to destroy the life I thought I had. 10 minutes later, I sat across from Dr. Reynolds in his office. It was a room I had been in a dozen times before, usually to hear good news or discuss vitamins. Today the blinds were drawn. The door was locked. Dr. Reynolds sat behind his mahogany desk, looking aged by 10 years in the last 10 minutes. He slid the folder across the desk toward me. "What I am about to tell you breaks every privacy law in the book," he began, his voice low. "HIPAA, doctor-patient confidentiality, ethical guidelines. I could lose my license for this. I could be sued. I could go to jail." I stared at him, my hands gripping the arms of the chair. "Then why are you telling me?" "Because I have known your mother for 30 years, he said softly. "I delivered you, Serafina. I watched you grow up. I cannot let you walk out of that door blind to the cliff you are standing on." He took a deep breath, steeling himself. "You need to leave your husband. Today. Before you go home. Do not tell him you were here. Do not tell him you know." I laughed. It was a nervous, incredulous sound that bubbled up from my chest. "Leave Arthur? Dr. Reynolds, he's wonderful. We're having a baby. We're happy. He's painting the nursery right now. He's excited. He cried when we found out. I don't understand." "He is excited, Dr. Reynolds said, his voice hard as stone. "Because his plan is working." He opened the folder. Inside were documents I didn't recognize. Lab reports, chain of custody forms, and a handwritten letter on yellow legal pad paper. "Serafina," he said, "the child you are carrying, biologically it isn't Arthur's." I blinked. "What? That's impossible. We did IVF. You did the procedure. It was his sample. We screened it. It isn't his, Dr. Reynolds repeated. And he knows it. Because he arranged it. The world tilted on its axis. I felt dizzy sick. I don't explain it. Please. 3 weeks ago, Dr. Reynolds said, pointing to the handwritten letter. A lab technician at the fertility clinic, a man named Gary, came to me. He was consuming himself with guilt. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat. He confessed everything. Dr. Reynolds leaned forward. 9 months ago, your husband, Arthur Sterling, approached Gary in the clinic parking lot. He knew Gary was in debt. He knew Gary's mother was sick and needed surgery Gary couldn't afford. Arthur offered him $40,000 in cash. $40,000? I whispered. To switch the samples, Dr. Reynolds said. Arthur provided a sample that he knew was non-viable. He is sterile, Serafina. Completely. He has known for years, long before he met you. But instead of telling you, instead of using a donor openly, he paid Gary to swap his sample with one from an anonymous donor during the IVF process. He paid for the swap, and he paid for the silence. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face now. Why? Why would he do that? If he's sterile, we could have just used a donor. I wouldn't have cared. We could have adopted. Why lie? Why commit fraud? Because, Dr. Reynolds said, he doesn't just want a baby. He wants a weapon. He pulled out another document, a copy of my prenuptial agreement. I frowned. How do you have this? My lawyer pulled it, he admitted. After Gary told me the plan, I had to be sure. Look at Clause 14b. The morality clause. I looked at the dense legal text. I remembered signing it. My mother's lawyers had insisted on it. It was standard for the Vance family. It stated that if either spouse committed adultery that resulted in a child born out of wedlock, the prenuptial agreement would be voided. The cheating spouse would owe a penalty of $5 million and forfeit all rights to the family trust and assets. I know the clause, I said. But I haven't cheated. Arthur knows that. Does he? Dr. Reynolds asked. Here is the plan, Serafina. This is what Arthur told Gary. He waits until the baby is born. He plays the doting father. He cuts the cord. He cries. Then a few weeks later, publicly, perhaps at a christening or a party, he demands a DNA test. He'll play it off as sentimental. I just want to see his heritage, he'll say. I want to frame the results. I felt bile rise in my throat. I could hear Arthur saying those exact words. But when the test comes back, Dr. Reynolds continued, it will prove scientifically and undeniably that he is not the father. And because the clinic records, the official ones, show that you used his sample, there will be only one conclusion. That I cheated. I whispered. That I got pregnant by another man naturally while pretending to do IVF. Exactly, Dr. Reynolds said. He will stand there, the heartbroken victim, holding a DNA test that proves his wife is a liar and an adulterer. He will use your shame, your confusion, and the public scandal to strip you of $5 million and your reputation. He will destroy you, Serafina. And he will walk away rich. I sat back in the chair, the room spinning. It was too evil. It was too calculated. This was the man who brought me tea in bed. The man who charmed my friends. The man who had held me while I cried over negative pregnancy tests. He hadn't been comforting me. He had been acting. Waiting. Plotting. He has gambling debts, Dr. Reynolds added quietly, twisting the knife. Gary overheard him on the phone with someone named Spider. He owes a lot of money, Serafina. Hundreds of thousands. He needs a payout. And you are the payout. I stood up. My legs felt like jelly. I walked to the trash can and dry heaved. Nothing coming up but acid and bile. Dr. Reynolds didn't move. He let me process the horror. My husband was a monster. A predator. He had turned my body, my pregnancy, my child, into a long con scam. What do? I asked, wiping my mouth with a tissue. My voice was shaking, but beneath the fear, a spark of rage lit up. You need to pretend, Dr. Reynolds said. You need to go home, kiss him, and act like everything is perfect. You cannot let him know you know. If he suspects, he might run. Or worse. He handed me the file. Take this. Copies of everything. Gary's confession. The log of the swap. The donor's ID number. Hide it. Then call your mother. My mother. Margaret Vance. The woman I hadn't spoken to in 6 months because she had called Arthur a snake in a cheap suit. She knew, I whispered. She always knew. She suspected, Dr. Reynolds corrected. Now you have the proof. I took the file. I buttoned my coat over my growing belly. The belly that held a child Arthur Sterling planned to use as evidence in a crime. I walked out of that office a different woman than the one who had walked in. The Serafina who walked in was a wife, a mother-to-be, a woman in love. The Serafina who walked out was a Vance. And the Vances did not get played. I drove home in a daze, the scenic Napa roads blurring past my window. The vineyard stretched out on either side. Rows of grapes that my grandfather and great-grandfather had planted. This land was my blood. Arthur wanted to take it. He wanted to turn my legacy into his casino chips. I pulled over to the side of the road as a sob ripped through my chest. I screamed, hitting the steering wheel until my hands hurt. I screamed for the wasted years. I screamed for the love I thought was real. I screamed for the baby who would never know his father because his father was a fiction. Then I wiped my face. I checked my eyes in the mirror. Red puffy. I grabbed my makeup bag from the passenger seat. Concealer. Powder. Mascara. I fixed the mask. I turned into the long driveway of the Vance estate. The iron gates opened slowly. There he was. Arthur. Standing on the porch, leaning against a pillar, looking like a Ralph Lauren ad in his linen shirt and boat shoes. He waved when he saw my car. He smiled that smile, the one that used to make my knees weak. Now it just made me want to kill him. I parked the car. I took a deep breath. Showtime, Serafina. I walked up the steps. Arthur met me halfway. Hey beautiful, he said, pulling me into a hug. He smelled of expensive cologne and deception. How did it go? Did you see the peanut? I pulled back and looked him in the eyes. I forced a smile onto my face, wide and bright. It was perfect, I said, my voice steady. Everything is absolutely perfect. That's my girl, he said, kissing my forehead. I have a surprise for you inside. I finished the crib. I can't wait to see it, I said. As we walked into the house, his hand resting possessively on the small of my back, I made a silent vow. He wanted a show? He wanted a public reveal? I would give him one. I would give him the greatest show of his life. I waited until I heard the rhythmic breathing of deep sleep coming from Arthur's side of the bed, before I dared to move. The digital clock on the nightstand read 2:14 a.m. The house was silent, save for the settling groans of the old timber beams that held up the Vance estate. I slipped out from under the duvet, careful not to shift the mattress. Arthur didn't stir. He lay on his back, one arm thrown over his head, looking peaceful, innocent. It was terrifying how easily he slept for a man who was orchestrating the ruin of his own family. I crept out of the bedroom, clutching my phone like a lifeline. I went downstairs to the library, my father's old sanctuary, soundproofed with heavy oak doors and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. I locked the door behind me. My hands were shaking so badly, I dropped the phone twice before I could dial. My mother answered on the second ring. Serafina? Her voice was sharp, awake. Margaret Vance didn't sleep. She waited. Mom, I whispered. And the single word cracked in the middle. The dam broke. I slid down the doorframe to the floor, sobbing into my hand to muffle the sound. Mom, you were right. You were right about everything. There was a pause on the other end. I braced myself for the lecture. For the I told you so. For the reminder of the 6 months of silence I had inflicted on her, because I was too stubborn to see the truth. Instead, her voice softened instantly. Where are you? Are you safe? I'm at home, I choked out. He's asleep upstairs. Dr. Reynolds told me everything. The baby isn't his. He swapped the samples. He's going to frame me. He wants the trust money. Stay there, she said, her tone shifting from mother to matriarch. Do not wake him. Do not confront him. I am calling Wallace. We will be there at 8 a.m. Act normal until then. Can you do that? Yes, I lied. I can do that. Good girl. You are a Vance. We do not break. We strike back. Go to sleep, Serafina. Tomorrow we go to war. I didn't sleep. I sat in the library until dawn, watching the shadows lengthen and retreat. I thought about the last 2 years. The way Arthur insisted on handling all the finances because I shouldn't worry my pretty head. The way he encouraged me to isolate myself from my friends, saying we needed us time. The way he had slowly, methodically, cut me off from my support system until he was the only voice in my ear. It wasn't love. It was a siege. At 7 a.m., Arthur came downstairs whistling. He kissed the top of my head where I sat at the kitchen island, nursing a cold cup of tea. "You're up early," he said cheerfully, pouring himself coffee. "Couldn't sleep?" "Just thinking about the nursery," I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. "I think we should paint the ceiling today. Maybe a soft blue." "Blue sounds great," he agreed. "I've got a few calls to make this morning, work stuff, but I'll be free by noon." Work stuff usually meant gambling or meeting his mistress, Jessica. I knew that now. I watched him walk into his study and close the door. At 8 a.m. sharp, the front gate buzzer rang. I checked the monitor. My mother's black Bentley was idling at the gate. Following her was a nondescript gray sedan. I buzzed them in. Arthur came out of his study frowning. "Who's here?" "We weren't expecting anyone." "It's my mother," I said casually. "I invited her." Arthur's face tightened. "Your mother? You haven't spoken to her in months." "Why now?" "Because I'm pregnant, Arthur," I said, widening my eyes innocently. "And she's the grandmother. I want to fix things. For the baby's sake. Please just be nice." He hesitated, clearly annoyed that his isolation of me was cracking, but he nodded. He couldn't refuse without looking like a jerk. "Fine. But don't let her stay long." My mother walked through the front door like she was inspecting a battlefield. She wore a sharp Chanel suit and heels that clicked like gunfire on the hardwood. Behind her walked a man in a rumpled suit carrying a briefcase. "Margaret," Arthur said, putting on his charming smile. "Long time no see. You look lovely." "Arthur," my mother said, not smiling back. She looked him up and down like he was a stain on her carpet. "This is Mr. Wallace. He's my financial consultant. We have some estate matters to discuss with Serafina regarding the baby's trust." Arthur's ears perked up at the word trust. "Of course," he said smoothly. "Anything for the baby's future. Should I join you?" "No," my mother said coldly. "This concerns Vance bloodline assets only. Why don't you go finish your calls?" Arthur stiffened, but he knew better than to argue with Margaret Vance when she was in this mood. He retreated to his study, but I saw the greed in his eyes before he turned away. He thought we were securing more money for him to steal. We went to the sunroom. Mr. Wallace locked the door and opened his briefcase. He wasn't a financial consultant. He was a private investigator, the best in the state. Ex-FBI, specialized in white-collar crime. "Mrs. Sterling," Wallace said, laying out photos on the table. "Your mother filled me in. I did a preliminary sweep last night. It's worse than we thought." He pointed to the first photo. It showed Arthur sitting at a table in a dimly lit room, surrounded by men who looked like they broke kneecaps for a living. "Your husband owes $250,000 to a bookie known as the Butcher in Oakland," Wallace said. "He's been playing high-stakes poker for 3 years. He's terrible at it. He's been borrowing against assets he doesn't own, specifically, your future inheritance." "He told them he was good for it," Wallace continued. "He told them his wife was a cash cow, and that he'd have a massive settlement coming within 6 months. I felt sick. Cash cow. That's what I was to him. Livestock. "Here's the embezzlement," Wallace said, sliding over a stack of bank statements. "He's a landscape architect, right? Or so he claims. He set up a shell company called Sterling Designs. He's been billing the Vance estate for renovations that never happened. 40,000 here, 20,000 there. He forged your signature on the invoices." I looked at the signatures. They were perfect copies of mine. I remembered him asking me to sign birthday cards or insurance forms over the years. He had been practicing. "And finally," Wallace said, hesitating, "the personal life." He laid down a series of photos. Arthur kissing a woman outside a coffee shop. Arthur and the same woman entering a hotel. Arthur holding hands with her at a park. Her name is Jessica Vane, Wallace said. Interior designer. They've been together for 18 months. She thinks he's divorcing you. He told her you were emotionally unstable, and that he was just waiting for the right time to leave safely. She's also pregnant. Wallace dropped the bomb. The air left my lungs. What? 3 months along, Wallace said. He's playing both of you. He plans to take your money, leave you with the scandal of a bastard child, and use your cash to start a new life with Jessica and their baby. My mother reached out and took my hand. Her grip was iron strong. Breathe, Serafina. Breathe. I stared at the photo of Jessica. She was pretty, blonde, young. She looked happy. She had no idea she was dating a sociopath. Or maybe she did. Maybe she was in on it. Does she know about the fraud? I asked. Unclear, Wallace said. But we can find out. I can bug his phone. I can clone his laptop. But I need your consent since the devices are in your home. Do it, I said instantly. Bug everything. The phone, the car, the office. I want to hear him breathe. Good, my mother said. Now we need a plan for the endgame. He's expecting a payout. We need to give him a show. He wants a gender reveal party, I said, a dark idea forming in my mind. Next Saturday. He wants to invite everyone. Press, partners, friends. He wants to announce a DNA test as a surprise. My mother smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator spotting wounded prey. Perfect. Let him plan it. Let him invite the world. Let him build his own gallows. We'll need witnesses, Wallace said. The lab tech, Gary. The donor, Elias. Can Dr. Reynolds get them on board? Gary is terrified, I said. But he'll talk if we offer him immunity. And the donor? Elias, he's a victim too. I think he'll help. I'll handle the legal side, my mother said. I'll have the DA ready to move on the fraud charges the moment you give the signal. But Serafina, you have to live with him for another week. Can you do that? Can you sleep next to him and not kill him? I thought about Arthur upstairs, probably texting Jessica right now, probably telling her how much he loved her while spending my money. I thought about the baby in my belly, the innocent life caught in this web of lies. I can do it, I said. I'll be the best wife he's ever seen. I'll cook his dinner. I'll rub his back. I'll smile when he touches me. I looked at the photo of Arthur laughing at the poker table. Because I know something he doesn't, I whispered. I know how the story ends. We spent the rest of the morning strategizing. Wallace installed spyware on Arthur's laptop while he was in the shower. I signed the consent forms. My mother arranged for a security team to be disguised as catering staff for the party. When they left, I went upstairs. Arthur was in the nursery, holding a can of blue paint. There she is, he beamed. How was your mom? Did she leave? She left, I said, walking over to him. She wants to set up a college fund for the baby. A big one. Arthur's eyes lit up. That's generous of her. Really generous. She wants to announce the amount at the gender reveal party. I lied. She said it's a surprise, but it's 7 figures, Arthur. Arthur practically vibrated with greed. 7 figures? Wow. That's amazing, honey. We should make this party huge. Really huge. I agree, I said, resting my head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. A heart that pumped nothing but ice. Let's invite everyone. I want the whole world to see how happy we are. He kissed me. I love you, Serafina. I love you too, I said. And in that moment, I realized I was a better liar than he would ever be. Because he lied for money. I was lying for survival. The week that followed was a blur of preparation. I ordered the cake. I chose the flowers. White lilies, funeral flowers, though Arthur didn't catch the irony. I invited the guests. And every night, I downloaded the audio files from the bug in his car, and listened to him call Jessica. Just a few more days, baby, his voice would say through my headphones. The old hag is giving us a trust fund. Once the check clears and the DNA test drops, we're gone. We'll be in Rio by Christmas. I hate waiting, Jessica would whine. She's so pathetic. Does she really think you love her? She's clueless, Arthur laughed. She's a walking checkbook. Don't worry. She'll get what's coming to her. I listened in the dark, letting the hate fuel me. Yes, Arthur, I thought. She will. Friday night, the eve of the party. The house was quiet. Arthur was asleep. I sat in the nursery, looking at the crib he had assembled. It was a beautiful crib. He was talented, I give him that. A talented architect of lies. My phone buzzed. A text from Wallace. Asset acquired. Elias, donor, is flying in tomorrow morning. Gary, lab tech, is in protective custody. The trap is set. I texted back, ready. I went back to bed. I lay down next to my husband. I reached out and took his hand. He squeezed it in his sleep. Sleep tight, Arthur. I whispered into the darkness. Tomorrow is a big day. Tomorrow, the world would know the truth. Tomorrow, the Vance family would settle its debts. And Arthur Sterling was about to learn that you never, ever bet against the house. Saturday morning dawned bright and painfully clear over the Napa Valley. The sun turned the acres of grapevines into ribbons of gold, the kind of perfect, picturesque morning that belonged on a postcard. Or in a horror movie right before the screaming starts. I woke up at 6 a.m. Arthur was already up, singing in the shower. He was happy. Why wouldn't he be? Today was his payday. Today was the day he cemented his image as the perfect father before tearing it all down. I dressed slowly. I chose a dress of pale blue silk that flowed over my baby bump like water. It was soft, feminine, non-threatening. I put on my pearls, my grandmother's pearls. Armor disguised as jewelry. Downstairs, the caterers, my mother's private security team in disguise, were already setting up the white tents on the great lawn. The air smelled of roasting coffee and impending doom. Morning gorgeous. Arthur bounded into the kitchen, smelling of aftershave and arrogance. He grabbed a piece of toast. Big day. Are you excited? Nervous, I admitted, pouring myself herbal tea to settle my roiling stomach. There are so many people coming. The press, the investors. It's going to be great, he assured me, checking his reflection in the microwave door. They're going to love the surprise. Speaking of, did the kit arrive? The DNA kit? I asked innocently. Yes. It's on your desk in the study, wrapped in a blue bow. Perfect, he grinned. I'll grab it right before the speeches. It'll be the highlight of the event. Oh, it certainly will be, I thought. By 2 p.m., the estate was swarming. 300 guests. The parking lot looked like a luxury car dealership. Waiters circulated with trays of champagne and sparkling cider. A jazz quartet played breezy tunes near the fountain. It was the social event of the season. My mother held court near the entrance, looking regal in a navy pantsuit. She caught my eye and gave a nearly imperceptible nod. Assets in place. I circulated, playing the part of the glowing mother-to-be. Thank you, yes, we're so thrilled. Oh, Arthur did the nursery himself. No, we don't know the gender yet. It's a surprise. I saw Jessica arrive. She had the nerve to show up. Arthur must have invited her to watch his triumph. She was wearing a tight floral dress that barely concealed her own small bump. She stood near the back, sipping water, watching Arthur with a possessive smirk. She had no idea she was attending her boyfriend's funeral. At 4 p.m., Arthur signaled the DJ to cut the music. The crowd hushed. He stepped up onto the raised platform decorated with balloons and flowers. He looked magnificent. The golden boy. Hello, everyone, he boomed into the microphone, flashing his $1,000,000 smile. Thank you all for coming to celebrate with us. Today isn't just about finding out if we're buying pink or blue. It's about family. It's about legacy. He beckoned me up to the stage. I walked up the steps, my hand on my belly, smiling shyly. He put his arm around me, squeezing tight. Serafina and I have been on a long journey, he said, his voice dropping to a practiced, emotional register. We struggled. We prayed. And finally, we were blessed. He wiped a fake tear from his eye. And because family means so much to us, I wanted to do something special today. Something to honor our roots. He reached under the podium and pulled out the DNA kit, wrapped in the blue bow. I've decided to take a DNA paternity test today, he announced. Not because I have doubts. He laughed, and the crowd chuckled with him. But because I want to frame the results. I want our child to have a scientific document of their heritage, linking them to me, to my father, to the Sterling line forever. The crowd awed. His mother, sitting in the front row, dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. So, Arthur said, opening the box, "Shall we do the swab?" He looked at me, expecting me to nod, to play along, to let him swab his cheek and seal his trap. I stepped up to the microphone. I gently moved his hand away. "That is such a beautiful idea, Arthur," I said, my voice clear and steady, amplified across the silent vineyard. "Truly, wanting to prove paternity is important." Arthur smiled, but his eyes flickered with confusion. I wasn't following the script. But, I continued, "I think we can skip the swab today." "Skip it?" Arthur laughed nervously. "Honey, it's part of the surprise." "I know," I said. "But I have a better surprise. I already have the results." Arthur froze. "What?" I said, "I already have the results." I repeated, my voice hardening. "Signal, please." I pointed to the tech booth. My mother's investigator, Wallace, gave a thumbs up. The massive LED screen behind us, which was displaying a loop of ultrasound photos, suddenly went black. Then a document appeared. It was a scanned PDF. The font was small, but magnified on the 20-foot screen. It was legible to everyone. Fertility Clinic, Chain of Custody Log. Date, October 12th. Patient, Serafina Vance. Sample source, donor number 8940. A murmur rippled through the crowd. People squinted. "What is this?" Arthur hissed, grabbing my arm. "Turn it off." I pulled away from him. "This," I said into the mic, "is the official log from the fertility clinic. It shows that on the day our baby was conceived, the sperm used did not belong to Arthur Sterling. It belonged to an anonymous donor." Gasps erupted. Arthur's face went white. "Daphne, stop. You're confused. This is—" "I'm not confused, Arthur." I cut him off. "And neither was the lab technician you bribed." The screen changed. A video played. Grainy black and white security footage. But clear enough. It showed Arthur in a parking garage, handing a thick envelope of cash to a man in scrubs. "That's you, Arthur," I narrated. "Handing $40,000 to Gary, the lab tech. Paying him to swap your sample, because you knew you were sterile. Paying him to help you frame me." "Frame you?" Arthur shouted, abandoning the nice guy act. "You're crazy. She's hormonal. Turn that off right now." He lunged for the tech booth, but two of the caterers stepped in his path, blocking him with crossed arms. "You planned to wait until the baby was born," I continued, relentless. "You planned to demand a DNA test then. When it came back negative, you were going to use our prenups morality clause to accuse me of cheating. You were going to try to steal $5 million from my trust." The crowd was in uproar now. Arthur's parents stood up, looking horrified. "And why did you need the money, Arthur?" I asked. "Was it for the baby? Or was it for this?" The screen changed again. Bank statements. Highlighted in red. Online poker. 15,000 Thepalassacasino, minus 40,000. Wire transfer to Spider. Minus $50,000. $250,000 in gambling debts, I read aloud. "And that's just the start. You also stole $40,000 from the estate renovation fund. You forged my signature." Arthur looked around wildly. He looked like an animal caught in a trap. He saw Jessica in the back of the crowd. He locked eyes with her. "And you didn't plan to stay," I said softly. "Did you?" The screen changed one last time. Photos. High-resolution photos taken by Wallace. Arthur kissing Jessica. Arthur and Jessica looking at real estate brochures for a villa in Brazil. Arthur's text messages displayed in giant bubbles. Text to Jessica. "Just 2 more months, babe. Once the bitch pays out, we're gone. I can't wait to never see her face again." The silence in the tent was absolute. 300 people stared at the screen, reading the words, "the bitch," over and over. Jessica squeaked and tried to run. 2 security guards gently but firmly stopped her. Arthur stood alone on the stage. He looked small. He looked pathetic. He looked at me. And for the first time, there was no mask. Just pure, unadulterated hatred. You set me up," he snarled. "I didn't set you up, Arthur," I said. I just turned on the lights. From the side of the tent, the flapping canvas parted. 2 uniformed officers and a man in a suit walked in. The man in the suit was the district attorney. Arthur Sterling, the DA announced, his voice booming without a mic. Please step down from the stage. Arthur looked at the police. He looked at his mother, who was sobbing into her hands. He looked at me. Daphne, he whispered, reverting to the desperate plea. Daphne, please. I did it for us. We needed the money. I was in trouble. They were going to hurt me. I love you. I looked at him. I touched my belly. You don't love anyone but yourself, I said. And my name is Serafina. The police walked up the steps. They spun him around. The click of the handcuffs was the loudest sound in the world. They marched him down the stairs, past the cake he never got to cut, past the friends he had fooled, past his weeping parents. As they dragged him past Jessica, the DA stopped. Jessica Vane? You're coming too. We have questions about conspiracy and aiding a fugitive. Jessica screamed as they cuffed her. He made me do it. I didn't know. He said he was leaving her. They were both shoved into patrol cars with lights flashing against the vineyard sunset. The party was over. But nobody left. They stood there, stunned, processing the opera they had just witnessed. My mother walked up onto the stage. She took the microphone from my hand. She put her arm around me. Thank you all for coming, she said calmly, as if she had just announced a charity auction item. Please enjoy the food. The bar is still open. And for those wondering, she signaled the tech booth one last time. The screen flashed a single color, blue. It's a boy, my mother said. A Vance boy. The crowd erupted in applause. It was hesitant at first, then louder. People cheered. Not for Arthur. For me. For the survival of the line. I collapsed into my mother's arms, the adrenaline finally leaving my body. It's over, I sobbed. Mom, it's over. No, darling, she whispered, stroking my hair. It's just beginning. Arthur Sterling pleaded guilty. The evidence was overwhelming. Between the fraud, the embezzlement, the forgery, and the conspiracy to commit extortion, he was looking at 15 years. He took a plea deal for 12. He sits in a cell in Folsom now, writing letters I never open. Jessica got probation in exchange for testifying against him. She moved back to Ohio. I heard she works at a diner. I had my baby, Leo. He was born on a Tuesday, screaming and red and beautiful. He has my chin and his donor's eyes, kind eyes. I tracked down Elias, the donor, just to thank him. We had coffee. He's a good man. He signed away his rights, but we send him pictures. He's not a father, but he's a friend. I run the winery now. My mother retired to travel the world, finally relaxed knowing the estate is safe. I walk the rows of grapes with Leo strapped to my chest. I tell him stories about his family, about the women who built this place, about the strength in his blood. I kept the ultrasound photo, the one Dr. Reynolds was looking at when he saved my life. I keep it in a box with my old wedding ring. A reminder. Love is beautiful. But truth is freedom. And if a man ever tries to sell me a dream again, I'll make sure to check the receipt first. Thanks for watching. If this story of justice satisfied your soul, hit that subscribe button. Share this video with a strong woman in your life. I'm Serafina Vance, and I'll see you in the next one.